And a summary of Genesis 49, 22 through 26 is that God keeps who He has called. Here, the context is Jacob has called all the brothers together and he's going to bless them. He starts with Reuben and then Simeon and Levi, and then he gets to Judah. And Judah is going to be the tribe through whom the lion will come, the king will come. And Judah gets the second most attention. The more words each brother gets, the more important they are. Joseph gets the most attention. Verse 22. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely. Yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father, who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents. Up to the bounties of the everlasting hills, may they be on the head of Joseph and on the brow of him who is set apart from his brothers. Now here we see in verse 22 three descriptions of Joseph. He's likened not to a donkey or a lion or a snake. He's likened to really a vine or one of the heavier branches of the tree. Here, I believe it's a vine, and it's a fruitful vine. It's a fruitful vine by a spring. Its branches overrun the wall. There's three sentences here that parallel one another to emphasize how fruitful and mighty and strong this vine is. Verse 23 contrasts this. This mighty vine is then attacked. Three lines together emphasize the attacks. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely. Now the archers and the attackers, they're his own brothers. They're the ones that sold him into slavery. They're the ones that harassed him and fought against him, denying his proper place of rule. Yet he remained unmoved. He remained unmoved, verse 24 says. Why or how did he remain unmoved? By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. This is redemptive language. The mighty right hand of God kept him. The mighty right hand of God kept him unmoved. We see a further description of this God, the God who is the shepherd of Israel, or the shepherd and the stone of Israel. There's two images here. Shepherd, obviously, these are all shepherds. They know that God protects and leads His people. But the stone is an unusual one because this isn't referring to God the rock, the mighty boulder that we think of. No, it's a different word that most likely refers to stones. I believe the best interpretation of this may be the stone pillars that Jacob has been setting up over time. Every time God reveals Himself, Jacob builds an Ebenezer, a reminder, a pillar out of stones to remind himself who God is, how great He is. A reminder of God's faithfulness. The God who has kept Joseph is a God who is a shepherd, who protects and leads His people, and a God who has been faithful. His blessing has been great. Now, one of the great applications here is we want to be unmoved by the gospel. We don't want to be tossed and turned by every different doctrine that comes from the world. We want to be steadfast, kept by God and sustained by Him. To have the courage to face every enemy. One way to be unmoved is to have absolute assurance that God has called you and is keeping you. Now, many people will say, if you want assurance of the gospel, you want assurance of your salvation, you need to look inside of you. You need to look inside of your heart and see what God is doing there. I think that's dangerous. You should look inside of you. You should do self-examination, but don't just look inside. Look up. Look up to God. Look up to see what He's been doing. Look up to hear what He says. Your salvation doesn't start here. Your salvation starts with what God has said, what God has done. Your heart is full of lies. And while the Spirit is there testifying, if you are a Christian, you need to look up to see His grace, and His love.